Produced and distributed by the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws in Washington, D.C., this is your NORML Daily Audio Stash, the growing truth about cannabis. Welcome to the most popular podcast regarding marijuana in all of America and all the world, featuring interviews with scientists, politicians, doctors, prohibition policy activists, regular cannabis consumers, musicians, artists, and NORML staff and NORML's board of directors, along with music and comedy no other podcast can offer. You can always find out more about the show at our website, stash.norml.org, and continue the education and conversation on our blog as well. We're ending marijuana prohibition with education, one listener at a time. The podcasting and blogging technology for the NORML Daily Audio Stash is provided by Red Aphid Interactive Media. Visit www.redaphid.com. It's Thursday, April 17th, and it's 4:20 somewhere in the world. I'm your host, Radical Russ Belville, and this is your NORML Daily Audio Stash. Remember, marijuana isn't going to re-legalize itself. You can make a difference in the fight to end adult marijuana prohibition. Just join up with the talented activists of the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws at NORML.org. While you're at it, stop by our blog at stash.norml.org. You can check the links on all of our news stories, download our PodSafe music, read commentary from myself and other marijuana activists, and leave your comments and response. It's the cannabis community's online home at the blog only NORML can deliver. Your daily audio stash at stash.norml.org. Today on the Daily Audio Stash, we're joined by Craig Shoemaker, the producer of a new stoner comedy out on DVD this Tuesday called Totally Baked. Cannabis Carry brings you a great musical break from an original ragamuffin named Barrington Levy with his reggae hit Collyweed. Then we'll speak with Philippe Lucas from the Vancouver Island Compassion Society. Philippe fills us in on the state of the medical marijuana program in Canada and the search by Health Canada for a new grower of government marijuana. We've got a lot to cover, so sit back and relax with a tasty beverage and your favorite strain and enjoy your NORML Daily Audio Stash. Now it's time to take a look at the latest stories about marijuana from news organizations across America and around the world in our NORML Daily Audio Stash, Hemp Headlines. Marijuana significantly relieves neuropathic pain. Davis, California. A clinical trial conducted at the University of California at Davis and just published online by the Journal of Pain has demonstrated significant relief of neuropathic pain caused by damage to nerves stemming from a variety of causes. This is the second study in just over a year to show that marijuana relieves neuropathic pain, which is notoriously resistant to treatment with conventional pain drugs, including opioid narcotics. A UC San Francisco study published last year showed relief of HIV/AIDS-related neuropathy. In the new study, 38 patients experiencing neuropathic pain from diabetes, spinal injury, multiple sclerosis, and other causes were given marijuana cigarettes of 3 different strengths: 0% THC, or a placebo, 3.5% THC, or 7% THC. In each session, patients took the same number of puffs following a standardized procedure to ensure uniformity of the dose received at each strength. Both doses of marijuana reduced pain significantly, producing marked declines in pain intensity that lasted over 5 hours. Researchers Barth Wilsey and colleagues wrote that side effects were, quote, relatively inconsequential and psychoactive effects were minimal and well tolerated, end quote. Although the scientists did express caution about the neurocognitive effects of the higher dose, reflected in lower scores on some tests of memory and problem solving, the study was not designed to examine the potential for marijuana to allow reduced doses of narcotic painkillers that also cause cognitive impairment, a benefit widely reported by patients. What? Didn't these guys get the memo from the DEA that marijuana has no medicinal value? That it's Cheech and Chong medicine? That all the hundreds of thousands of medical marijuana patients in the 12 U.S. states are all faking it so they can get high legally? That the science just isn't there to prove marijuana is medicine? Geez, why do we keep letting scientists and doctors do research on cannabis and report the truthful results when our politicians and law enforcement have settled this debate already? Minnesota's largest paper supports medical marijuana. An editorial from the Minneapolis Star-Tribune. At a time when researchers are plunging into the rainforest in search of new medicines, there's growing consensus that a humble herb, easily cultivated here, may help patients struggling with cancer, AIDS, multiple sclerosis, and other painful, difficult-to-manage conditions. The herb, whose slim, multi-pronged leaf makes it instantly recognizable, is marijuana. The Minnesota Senate has already approved a measure that would make Minnesota the 13th state to legalize its medical use. The House will likely vote this spring. Lawmakers, as well as the governor, should give the bill careful yet open-minded consideration and make it a reality. There's solid and growing data on the medical benefits of marijuana and its active compound for treating neuropathy, which causes extremity pain, multiple sclerosis, ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, and chemotherapy-induced nausea and appetite loss. While other treatments are available, there are situations in which marijuana may work best. Doctors should be able to make this call. The New England Journal of Medicine has editorialized in favor of marijuana's medical use. In January, the nation's second-largest group of physicians, the American College of Physicians, weighed in, also in favor. Minnesota's medical marijuana law is 9 pages and written more tightly than California's law to limit abuse. Unlike California, it requires qualifying patients to register and carry an ID card. Patients, who must have a health professional's approval to qualify, are also not allowed to grow their own. They'd buy marijuana from a registered nonprofit. There's still potential for abuse, but as OxyContin illustrates, that can happen with any prescription drug. Most Western states and a handful in the Northeast protect patients whose doctors have decided marijuana is the best treatment option. For the most part, the laws have worked well, without the worst-case scenarios feared by law enforcement. It's time for Minnesota to ensure that its sickest patients have all the treatment options they need. Yep, the people are way ahead of the politicians on this issue. Kudos to the Minneapolis Star-Tribune for seeing through the reefer madness and endorsing such a sensible piece of legislation. Though I have my reservations about patients not being allowed to grow their own medicine. Why not allow people who are suffering to treat themselves independently? Preparing for Colorado 420 pot smokeout. Student smokers, in perhaps the cliched easygoing fashion associated with marijuana, are getting ready for the annual 420 celebration on the University of Colorado campus. Official smokeout t-shirts sold online simply say, University of Colorado, April 20, Farrand Field. Every year, thousands of people gather on the CU campus April 20 for the unofficial pro-pot celebration, and at 4:20 p.m., a cloud of smoke mushrooms above the crowd. The event is said to have grown from a Northern California tradition. CU police this year are bracing for a large crowd. Alex Douglas, who does public relations for NORML CU chapter, said there will also be a screening of the documentary Super High Me in the Crystal Chemistry Building, room 140. The group plans to rally for the legalization of marijuana with signs and banners on the Norland Quad. CU Police Commander Brad Weasley said the department will likely need to pay overtime to its officers to monitor the event, given the possibility that the smokeout could be heavily attended. Weasley said, quote, "We will obviously have a presence. We certainly don't condone, support, or otherwise sanction this event," end quote. In past attempts to snuff out the event, campus police have turned sprinklers on the crowd and taken pictures of student smokers, posting them online and offering rewards to those who could identify them. Weasley, though, was mum on this year's planned tactics. Quote, "We don't give our playbook to the other team before the game. People have a right to protest for marijuana law reform, but breaking the law in order to change the law is not how our democratic society works," he said. Commander Weasley, if I may enlighten you with a quote from the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., from his letter from a Birmingham jail. Quote, One may well ask, how can you advocate breaking some laws and obeying others? The answer lies in the fact that there are two types of laws, just and unjust. I would be the first to advocate obeying just laws. One has not only a legal, but a moral responsibility to obey just laws. Conversely, one has a moral responsibility to disobey unjust laws. I would agree with St. Augustine that an unjust law is no law at all. Let us consider a more concrete example of just and unjust laws. An unjust law is a code that a numerical or power majority group compels a minority group to obey, but does not make binding on itself. This is difference made legal. By the same token, a just law is a code that a majority compels a minority to follow, and that it is willing to follow itself. This is sameness made legal." End quote. Marijuana prohibition is one of those unjust laws. The power majority made our use of an intoxicant, marijuana, illegal, but keeps their use of an intoxicant, alcohol, legal. Dr. King was addressing the social and legal segregation of blacks and whites. I'm addressing the social and legal segregation of tokers and drinkers. Breaking unjust laws in an act of civil disobedience is a long tradition in this nation, even for us cannabis consumers.
Marijuana is an addictive drug which produces in its users insanity, criminality, and death.
Marijuana is the most violence-causing drug in the history of mankind.
If the hideous monster Frankenstein came face to face with the monster of marijuana, he would drop dead from fright.
Well, for Reefer Madness this time, we've got more news from Colorado. A DEA agent who says, lax Colorado laws welcome more organized crime. This is from CBS 4 Denver. A Drug Enforcement Administration agent says softer laws on drugs mean an increase in organized crime in Colorado. The DEA says it's a direct result of changes in Colorado's drug laws. Organized crime groups and the drugs they deal are moving into Colorado at a quicker rate. Jeffrey Sweeten, a DEA special agent in charge of Colorado, said, quote, "I think they believe it's a good market, and I think the case could be made that it is a good market." End quote. Sweeten said it's in part because of Denver's law making marijuana legal in small amounts and a statewide initiative to legalize medical marijuana. The DEA says when it comes down to it, statistics show marijuana is the most widely abused drug in Colorado. Well, actually, I think the most widely abused drug in Colorado is Coors Light. Oh, wait, sorry. Alcohol doesn't count, right? Even though it killed 207 Colorado drivers in 2006? And to prove that there's an increase in organized crime, Special Agent Sweeten pulls figures from the department of right out of his ass. It's hard to understand how Denver's law allowing personal possession has enticed organized crime, since Denver police are ignoring that law and arresting cannabis consumers anyway under state law. The only enticement to organized crime is the continued prohibition of marijuana that makes it very profitable for criminals to sell. The only way Colorado's medical marijuana program could possibly contribute to that is due to the fact that there is no legal medical marijuana distribution system, so patients are forced to buy it from the black market. Do you really want to deal a blow to organized crime? Tax and regulate marijuana like we do whiskey, and force the criminal in the dark alley to compete with a safe legal liquor store.
Hi, this is Alan St. Pierre, the Executive Director of NORML. This Sunday, cannabis consumers across the country celebrate 420. So have a good time and enjoy Earth Day, because on Monday, the work begins. Your 420 assignment is to get on the phone and tell your congressman to support Barney Frank's bill to decriminalize marijuana at the federal level. Just get you and all your 420 friends to call 202-224-3121 to speak to your elected representatives. That's 202-224-3121 and tell them to support Barney Frank's decriminalization bill for marijuana. Thank you.
We're joined today by Craig Shoemaker, who's the producer of a new movie coming out called Totally Baked. It's coming out on DVD April 22nd, and it looks to be a great comedy for all of the cannabis community. So, Craig, thank you for joining us here on the Daily Audio Stash.
You are welcome. I mean, it's a shame we're 2 days late on the 420, but but you can still get it ahead of time.
That's right. And so this will be coming out on the 22nd, and looking at my calendar, that's Tuesday, the 22nd. So everybody get to your DVD stores. Is this available on Netflix as well?
It's available pretty much everywhere. You go to totallybakedmovie.com and you can sort of get a trailer and get an idea of what it's about. And I believe you can pre-order it and maybe even get in on time for 420.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah.
Now, Craig, an interesting aside on this. You're the producer of this movie, Totally Baked. I'm looking at the DVD cover. There's a fine-looking young woman in a marijuana bikini with a marijuana U.S. flag behind her. And the oddest thing is that you don't use cannabis at all.
I do not. I used to for many years, and what it does for me is it doesn't do what it does for most people. But people have said, well, why would you write a marijuana movie if you don't smoke marijuana?
Right.
And to that I say there are plenty of people that they write war movies and have never shot a gun, or gangster movies and have never been in a gang. Right. But this is one thing I do have experience with. It all spawned from my son. My 7-year-old Justin. I was singing that song. I'm a joker, smoker, midnight toker. You know Steve Miller.
Yeah.
One of my favorite all-time songs. And he said, "Dad, what's a toker?" And I said, "Well, it's someone that smokes pot." And then he went into the kitchen. He pulled out a pot and he goes, "How do you smoke this?" and I said, "Well, it's actually marijuana that they smell." He says, "What's marijuana? And did you ever smoke?" And this is my answer to him: is I wrote this movie and I did all the research, not that kind of research. I've done that before, but I did all the research into, well, why can't I talk to my child about this? And why is it illegal? Why is it so demonized? And what turned out was a movie that I think is really, it started off as a potumentary. And we turn it into a real film that we explore all elements of marijuana, but you will see for yourself that obviously you know this, all the hypocrisies and why it's illegal, and we go through this bawdy, irreverent journey on showing how silly it is and how hypocritical it is that it is illegal and criminalized.
Well, I saw that you showed this at the Austin Film Festival. It looks like you got some great reviews from that film festival.
Yeah, well, everything's been a great review so far. New York Times just reviewed it, and we're real excited about it. I'm excited about it because I hope that we can help some of these laws change, which I do believe there is a transformation taking place, obviously, with this administration. Once this is over, I think that there's some change about, and one of the things I really got from this is how important it is to approach this in an adult way, not a protesting way, but we try to show in a fun way that how silly it is that alcohol can be legal and how many deaths have happened from alcohol and even overeating and so forth, and how few, if any, deaths happen from marijuana. We take actual statistics. We talk about Jefferson and Franklin growing the stuff. And, you know, one of the quotes we say is, Jefferson says, "Some of my finest hours have been spent on my back veranda smoking hemp and staring as far as my eye can see." And it was interesting to do this research and find out exactly why it is demonized. And I'm sure you know all about that, and how corporate greed has entered into it. And we offer some solutions as well.
So it's not just a plain old stoner comedy, so to speak. It's actually educational, informative to some people that might not know these things.
That's exactly right. Well, we hope we do it in a stoner comedy way, but it is definitely really silly and has a lot of... it's got... My son, the irony is my 7-year-old can't watch the movie because we have a number of nude women, and because that happens sometimes when you get stoned. There's nudity.
Not nearly often enough.
Don't have the right stuff, I guess.
Maybe.
But yeah, I mean, it's and we don't just take this one-sided approach. You know, we talk about we have a scene that, you know, I used to, you know, quite frankly, I'd get paranoid, and then we have a silly scene. It was written that I did it. I actually wrote it on the fly. You know, John Oates of Hall & Oates.
Right.
Well, he's a fan of my comedy, and he looked me up, and we became, well, I actually met him while we were filming, I went to a concert of his, and he said, "You're welcome to come backstage." And so I met him backstage. I said, "Hey, I'll write you in a part." And so I wrote this part. We have this this whole through line where this medical, where this debate team, college debate team, gets held hostage by medical marijuana activists on the lam, who have taken all this cannabis and this G14, and anyway, medical marijuana, and they teach these debaters these lessons about who end up not being able to debate and understanding exactly where the marijuana policies are coming from. So we wrote oats in there where they get stoned, and the one debater, he goes, "Oh man, I'm freaking out. I think I see Hall & Oates," and it's me and me with a woman's head dangling above me, so I can have Hall's long blonde hair and Oates, because we couldn't afford a wig on the spot, and so he says, "I think I see Hall & Oates," and we're going, "He's a man-eater." We're kind of playing with him. So yeah, it's really silly like that, and it was done, on a shoestring budget, no pun intended, with my name Shoestring, and we're trying this grassroots campaign, and Universal picked this up, and we even got into Walmart.
Wow, not with that cover on the DVD?
No, they changed the cover a little bit. She's in a regular bikini.
I was going to say.
They might have thought they bought a cooking film on Totally Baked. I'm not really sure what happened there, but they bought 34,000 copies, so we're pretty happy.
Wow. Well, that's excellent. And the other thing that's good to see here is that, Oates is not the only musical influence on this movie. You've got music from AC/DC's Brian Johnson on this DVD.
And Cliff Williams, the bass player.
Oh, right.
Actually, this also told me how good the film is. I sent it to Brian's, an old friend of mine. He actually sang at my wedding.
Oh, wow.
AC/DC at my wedding. You put your right foot in! Anyway, which was a big kick for the older aunts and uncles. By the way, my grandmother smokes and grows reefer, so she did a couple bong hits with Brian Johnson.
Oh, wow.
So that's a true story. Anyway, Brian, he saw the film and he flipped for it, and he has really tough taste. He's one of the smartest guys I've ever met. I've known him about 25 years. And he loved it so much, he said, son, I want to get involved. And he wrote 3 original songs for it, which AC/DC hasn't come out with anything in about 8-9 years. They're recording now, but they haven't come out with anything. So we basically have half of AC/DC on these tracks, and he's now executive producer, too. He really believes in the film.
Wow. Now, who else do you have involved in the film? I saw a couple names, Jackie the Joke Man and Doug Benson. We've spoken to him a few times.
Sure, yeah. Well, we have interspersed throughout it. It's a whole potpourri. What we did was I wanted to bring back Kentucky Fried Movie.
Yeah. Now, our younger listeners won't know what we're talking about when we talk about Kentucky Fried Movie, but...
What do you mean our younger listeners? You know what? They do have... It's on DVD.
Go rent Kentucky Fried Movie, folks, so you can know what we're talking about.
I'm not old enough to have been there for Gone with the Wind, but I've certainly watched the movie. I think that a lot of kids have seen it.
I hope so.
It's a great movie, and so are the Cheech and Chong movies. And by the way, Bamboo Rolling Papers from those days, they sponsored this movie.
Oh, wow.
And I think that there's some giveaways if you go to totallybakedmovie.com of rolling papers and T-shirts and stuff like that. But yeah, we got a lot of people involved. Anyway, the comedians are interspersed throughout. Like Kentucky Fried Movie, we do phony commercials and phony TV shows. We have fundamentalist girls going wild. They're high on the hookah. It's really, really silly stuff, but it all makes the point.
Yeah.
We make the point about cancer patients and how silly this is and ridiculous that they can't get this the greatest form of medication can grow in our backyard.
Yeah. Now, speaking of the website address once again.
TotallyBakedMovie.com, and you can actually, I think you can hear Brian's song that's in it. I got to see him do it in concert, which was a lot of fun. I was in Atlantic City last year, and my son Justin, again the same boy, and he was 8 at the time, and so it's basically his Uncle Brian, and he gets out and Deep Purple and stuff like that was on. Justin was fine. Then when AC/DC came out, it was so loud, Justin was on the floor going, "Daddy, tell Uncle Brian to turn it down. My lungs hurt."
Lungs
writhing
hurt.
on the floor. But Uncle Brian announced the movie and did one of the songs, and I got to hear the whole audience, thousands of people going, "Who phoned the law?"
Oh, that's
one of the
excellent.
songs is "Who Phoned the Law," and it's just really great stuff. And it's AC/DC at their best, and "Chase the Tail." That's another song on there. It's great stuff. I mean, musically, I'm so happy with the music throughout. Well, we did this for, and I paid for the movie, by the way.
Oh, wow.
Me and the guy that does my trees, we paid for the movie because we really believe in it, and we believe in the humor of it as well. Because humor is just so important in our society and so undervalued. And I just think it's a great way to make a point to people instead of screaming at the enemy. I think this is a nice way to get in.
I totally agree with that. And the website is www.totallybakedmovie.com. We'll have a link to that up on our blog at stash.normal.org. And really good news about this is that 10% of all the direct sales through the website is being donated to NORML.
That's correct. And I think that we did that intentionally because, like I said, I'm transformed now. Not that I smoke pot, because, like I said, it doesn't really do well with me, and that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with it. It's just that it's not for me. But I do think, I know now that it should be at the very least decriminalized and at the most legalized. And hey, hell, why not tax it?
Yeah, relax it and tax
That could
it.
be our number one crop. It was at one time.
And it will be again. America's roots are hemp roots, and thank you for putting together a movie that's going to show people that. I agree with you. The comedy is a very important weapon in this fight. You can break through people's walls of ignorance and misunderstanding by just getting them to laugh at you.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, quite frankly, I make a good spokesperson for this because I'm not what they consider, a pothead or a slacker, and that's, this is how that element thinks. That's how they think is, and they don't listen to the message, and the message is very clear of just how silly and greedy this all is, that it's criminalized like this and demonized. And it's just ridiculous. It's the opposite of reefer madness.
Yes.
We do it in a mad and crazy way of, just lightening people up. We need to lighten up a lot more in our society. I'm kind of tired of the news that, Fox News and CNN with that crawl that comes across. Here's some stuff that will scare you today. Orange alert, hostages, don't eat spinach. Don't you think they should have jokes coming across the screen? You look up, you see 2 Jews walking to a bar.
No.
Watch the joke unfold. The world would be a better place. I think the world would be a better place if they all got stoned together.
Oh, I can toke to that.
I'm also in the movie, by the way. I play a guy you can't see unless you're high.
Okay. Well, I will
keep an eye out for that. It's a very, very funny movie, and I hope you all get it. And like I said, we give a percentage to NORML.
Right on, man. Right on. Thank you. And I will test that out. I'll see if I can see you in the movie.
All right. I appreciate it.
Well, Craig, thank you for joining us here on the Daily Audio Stash. Craig Shoemaker is the producer of the new movie, Totally Baked. You can get it on Tuesday, April 22nd at your DVD stores. Thanks, Craig. Good day.
Hello, I'm Paul Stanford from the Hemp and Cannabis Foundation, or THCF. Medical marijuana is legal in 12 states today, and THCF has medical clinics in 6 of those states. Our physicians help qualified patients obtain an authorization for medical marijuana in their state. Patients are eligible for medical marijuana with a history of either severe chronic pain and or nausea, cancer, AIDS or HIV, hepatitis, glaucoma, seizure disorders like epilepsy, chronic muscle spasms as in multiple sclerosis or asthma, neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's, and gastrointestinal disorders like IBS or Crohn's disease. If you or someone you know has one of these conditions, our doctors will help them obtain a permit for medical marijuana. THCF Medical Clinics has offices in Washington State, Oregon, Colorado, Nevada, Hawaii, and California. Call 1-800-723-0188 or go to the web at www.hemp.org or 1-800-723-0188.
Here Here at the Normal Daily Audio Stash, we work hard to change our nation's marijuana laws through education and discussion. But we also take the time to relax and unwind with an eclectic mix of pod-safe music from many independent artists. We look for music that speaks to the growing truth about cannabis, or music that speaks to broader themes of freedom, liberty, social justice, equality, and protest. To find out more about the artists and download the music you hear on this podcast, just log on to stash.normal.org. And if you'd like to get your music heard by the online cannabis community, just send us an email at stash@normal.org. Time for our musical break, and today on the Stash we get some classic reggae for all you Stashers that are reggae fans. Barrington Levy brings us his classic toker-friendly tune, Collyweed, for today's musical puff. Born in Jamaica, Barrington has been recording reggae music since the 1970s. At the tender age of 14, Barrington was a popular performer in the large Jamaican dance halls. Barrington recorded music with reggae heavyweights Roots Radix, and through the years he has shared the stage with every big name in reggae. In 1996, after the death of Sublime's Bradley Nowell, the remaining members of the band recorded several songs with Barrington. Levy was only involved in a handful of shows, but his contribution to their 1999 release Right Back, under the new moniker Long Beach Dub All-Stars, was considered the best of the album. You can learn more about Barrington Levy by checking out our website at stash.normal.org, where we've got links to his music publishing company, as well as a download of this song. It's Barrington Levy with Collyweed.
Hi, this is Alan St. Pierre, Executive Director of NORML. When you celebrate 420 this weekend, remember, 830,000 people got arrested last year in these United States on marijuana charges. Help us do something about it by getting yourself and your friends to make a donation to NORML on 420. Even a small donation of $4.20 can help us end adult marijuana prohibition. Thank you.
We're joined now by Philippe Lucas, who's the director of the Vancouver Island Compassion Society. Philippe, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much.
I had read a news story just a couple of days ago about Health Canada. Of course, Canada has a federal medical marijuana program, and there's a new bid now for someone to run their medical marijuana growing operations. Why don't you tell our American listeners a little bit about Canada's medical marijuana and where it's grown?
Sure. Canada's medical marijuana program started in 1999, although our official medical marijuana access regulations were put in place in 2001. I think one of the important things to keep in mind in regards to this program is that it wasn't done because of some compassionate act or one of our major political parties felt that this was something that needed to be done. Unfortunately, it took a court order from one of our high courts in Ontario to actually get Health Canada to put in place a medical marijuana program, and that came about because Canada was prosecuting medical users and not recognizing their right and their need to access medical marijuana. In 2001, along with the introduction of the medical marijuana access regulations, Health Canada put out a request for proposals to get a domestic source of cannabis produced, and a company called Prairie Plant Systems, whose previous experience included growing oranges and ornamentals, put in a bid for that contract and eventually won it. They currently grow Canada's medical cannabis supply 500 feet below ground in an abandoned zinc and copper mine in Flin Flon, Manitoba. And what we've seen since they've released their cannabis in 2003 has been a very low level of satisfaction with that product. About 20% of people who join the Health Canada program, and currently there's about 2,300 people in that program, about 20% of those folks order the Health Canada cannabis, but within 4 months' time, that drops down to 5.8%. And so overwhelmingly, most of the people who use medical cannabis in Canada obtain it from another source. And so that particular source of cannabis from Health Canada has been a real area of controversy since they began its distribution in 2003.
Well, sure. I mean, this is an abandoned mine. Isn't there some environmental concerns, any possibility of contamination of the medicine?
Those were early concerns of ours, definitely, and we had the cannabis tested for heavy metals as well as biological impurities. There's no doubt that the perception right now is that that Flin Flon, Manitoba, which has been ranked one of North America's most environmentally contaminated sites because of 80 years of mining and smelting, is not the best place to be growing medicine for Canada's critically and chronically ill population. And the idea of growing cannabis in a mine has clearly been something that hasn't been particularly well received by our medical marijuana community.
Now, this is all part of Health Canada. This is part of your Canadian health care. So what do patients have to go through as far as acquiring the Health Canada marijuana? Is there a cost associated, paperwork, anything like that?
There is a cost. It takes a few hoops. The initial application to join the Canada Medical Marijuana Program is a 33-page application, and you require the support of your physician and in some cases of a specialist as well. Once you're in the program, you can order the Health Canada cannabis. They send it to your door. That part of the process is rather convenient. The cost is about $5 a gram, and so it's a little bit below the cost of the black market. But we've recently discovered that Health Canada actually marks up their cannabis 1,500% after purchasing it from Prairie Plant Systems, and so they pay Prairie Plant System about $325 per kilo, and that gets marked up to $150 an ounce by the time it gets to end users. And unsurprisingly, what we've seen is that the large majority of people who've ordered that cannabis have been unable to pay for it, or have chosen not to because of poor quality and because of quality concerns.
What does the government use as justification for such a huge markup on the cannabis medicine?
Well, they're suggesting that the markup is actually the cost of packaging it and shipping, etc. And now, of course, if you're producing a product and then you're having to you're having to increase the price of that product 1,500% in order to get it to market, I think that's an evidence of a very poor business model.
Yeah.
And since Health Canada is well aware that 70% of people who've ordered that Health Canada cannabis have not been able to pay for it or have chosen not to, clearly they've had a lot of time and and opportunity to review their current policy for distribution and to make adjustments. The current statistic that we have is that out of the 580 people who've ordered that cannabis, there's about 450 who are currently in debt to Health Canada, and that debt totals over $500,000, over $1,000 on average per user. And Health Canada has responded to this high level of debt by not only cutting off many people from accessing that supply of cannabis, which is Canada's only legal supply, but also sending collection agencies after AIDS patients, cancer patients, and people suffering from hepatitis C.
No, that's just ridiculous. Now, as far as looking at the government here growing your marijuana in Flin Flon in a mine, and like you say, everybody says that it's not a very good product, and there's a lot of dissatisfaction with that. Do you see that as intent by the Canadian government to provide a bad product to keep people off the program, or is this just the fact that they're incompetent at growing marijuana?
That we'll probably never get the complete answer to that question. I think it's a good question. I personally think it's a combination of both. This is a program. Our program's officially called the Medical Marijuana Access Division. That's the Health Canada division dealing with this program. But that's the biggest oxymoron in federal government right now. Their entire goal and modus operandi is to try and prevent medical cannabis, and that's been very clear since the start of this program. And so I find the program has many problems. One of them is that it's overly restrictive. There's currently over 1 million Canadians who claim to have access or claim to be using cannabis for medical purposes in Canada, but our program's only protecting 2,300 people at this point. And in regards to the federal cannabis, it's become so painfully obvious that Health Canada is absolutely completely willing to ignore patient needs when it comes to a medical cannabis supply. We know that over the years, thousands, literally, of people have asked Health Canada to produce multiple strains rather than the single strain that they currently supply end users in order to address different symptomology. It's a common sense approach that the Dutch have used and that other governments are looking into as well right now. But Health Canada only supplies a single strain of cannabis, pre-ground, and only a single method of ingestion. They supply it as a pre-ground, basically powder. Whereas through community-based dispensaries like the Vancouver Island Compassion Society, we have about 35 different strains that rotate through our stock, and we supply cannabis in edible form, as an oral mucosal spray, as an oil, and so we give many methods of ingestion other than smoking, because that's what our patients tell us they need.
So the Health Canada now is looking for new, companies to make the bid here to grow the marijuana. Are they going to continue along the same way, or does the company that wins the bid have any choice of what they grow or where they grow?
There won't. I think they'll have an option about where they grow. I think that my feeling is that this bid, unfortunately, is a bit of a charade. I think it's very likely that Prairie Plant System, the current producer of cannabis that's had the contract since 2001, will once again come away with the right to produce and the monopoly right to produce, which is one of the main problems that we have up here in Canada. Without giving patient options and increasing the options to end users, I think that we're really failing to address the real need and suffering of our sick and suffering citizens.
Well, I couldn't agree more, and it's just sad when I think about Canada and just how many great strains of marijuana are grown up there, and how we're not able to get the government to get those to the patients. It just seems like a shame.
Absolutely, and even more so, I think the elephant in the room in all of this is that our Health Canada program is currently protecting 2,300 users from arrest, but they're only supplying about 450, 500 users with medical cannabis right now. And when you compare that to the 10 or so community-based dispensaries in major urban areas in Canada that are currently supplying 13,000 Canadians with a safe source of cannabis, all at no cost to our taxpayers, it's quite clear that a community-based program that was more client and patient-centered would better serve our critically and chronically ill population, and additionally would be a massive cost savings to Canadian taxpayers. And so until Health Canada has the common sense and creativity to work with compassion clubs, we're going to continue to see this program completely underserve our critically ill population.
Well, how can our listeners help you out with that? Is there a website or phone number they should be calling?
Well, absolutely. If you'd like more information on the Canadian program, I've just published an overview of our federal medical marijuana program in the Harm Reduction Journal, and that article is called Regulating Compassion, an overview of Health Canada's medical cannabis policy and practice. It's available at our website, which is at www.thevix.com. And if you want more information on the Health Canada program, you can check out Canadians for Safe Access, and they're at www.safeaccess.ca. And a lot of the information that we talked about today regarding the problems with that cannabis and access to Health Canada's program is found there. Additionally, the Vancouver Island Compassion Society has been engaged for the last few years in a constitutional challenge against Health Canada's medical marijuana program to try and get greater recognition of patients' rights and protect more patients here in Canada. And if you'd like to help us out, it's been an expensive court process, and donations can be made at our website, which is once again www.thevix.com.
That's VICS?
That's right,
okay.
THEVICS.com. And any and all assistance would be much appreciated.
Well, we'll have links to that up on our post at the Stash blog at stash.normal.org, so you can check up on that. I want to thank Philippe Lucas, the director of the Vancouver Island Compassion Society, for joining us here on the Daily Audio Stash. Thanks, Philippe.
It's been an absolute pleasure. You guys keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thank you for downloading the NORML Daily Audio Stash, the growing truth about cannabis. We are produced by the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws in Washington, D.C. Our executive producer is Alan St. Pierre. Our deputy director is Paul Armentano. Our webmaster is Brian Judy. And web production is provided by Red Aphid Interactive Media. As always, you can catch up on the latest information about marijuana at www.norml.org. And you can interact and download from our Audio Stash blog at stash.normal.org. For everyone here at NORML, I'm your host, Radical Russ Belville, hoping all your harvests are bountiful and your encounters with law enforcement are non-existent. We leave you today with a cannabis quote from Mark Twain, the great American writer, who once wrote, quote, "He had discovered a great law of human action without knowing it, namely, that in order to make a man or a boy covet a thing, it is only necessary to make that thing difficult to obtain." End quote. And that's the iron law of prohibition. The harder you try to prohibit drugs, the more people are going to want to get them. It's time to end adult marijuana prohibition. I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining the Audio Stash today. We're coming back on Friday with our special 420 show, and this weekend, the Weekend Music Stash. So make sure you download those. We'll talk to you later, and until then, take care of each other, tokers.